Hey, welcome to A Little Better. My name is Daniel. I'll be your host. We're super excited to dive into this week on what exactly happened on the cross when Jesus says in his mind, he hasn't said it verbally yet, but something is fulfilled. We talk all about that, the Old Testament, and can you even trust the Gospels? Are there too many contradictions to even actually read them for who they are? We'll find out all that and more on today's episode of A Little Better. Remember, our goal on this podcast is to know Jesus better and by the power of his Spirit, do better so together we can be a little better. Well, welcome to A Little Better. We're ready to jump on in. How's everybody feeling this morning?
Feeling fine.
I
can't believe it was a very short summer.
That was good.
That's too soon.
That was good and funny. The funniest thing is when we were in a conversation last week, and Scott Bigsby said they had a celebration for like goodbye to winter when it was the second day of spring.
Did.
And I told him, I told him, I was like, this is all your fault because you mocked it.
Yes.
And here came winter. He's coming back. You're mocking winter.
Don't mess. Don't mess with winter.
This time of year is so hard. It's just like, oh Lord, speaking of suffering, I haven't done that well. I'm actually tired.
Always winter and never Christmas.
Sunday was a long day.
Kudos
to Nate Bannell and his worship team. What a great night of worship.
Man.
And
I was hoarse. I couldn't imagine how they got through two services with those voices.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love it. If you missed it, we're planning on having another one this year. So
yeah,
to get the next one.
And looking at David over here, thinking grateful for his contribution on the worship team.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
the whole team, they were awesome. It was so good. I was so tired, but it's weird to be exhausted but on a high, right? Like a spiritual high. You feel like you're floating in the clouds but need to be laying in your bed. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
So,
that was good. And it was a really full day for those involved in membership class as well. So it was tagged on.
Got longer if you watched the Oscars.
Yeah, it got longer. There, it did.
It was longer.
It was a long day.
Shocking. All of it was shocking.
All of it shocking. All right, Drew, give us your sermon in 60.
I can give you it in 3 words. I am thirsty. We dug into the depths of that, and so Jesus was revealing who he was through the event of the hyssop branch, going back to the Old Testament, and how he's our Passover lamb. He was fulfilling prophecy, and so you see how detailed and intentional God is. And then we just saw the raw humanity of Jesus, that he gets us, understands us, and has experienced what we experience as humans. And so out of that, man, when we suffer, we don't suffer alone. You see the pursuit of God for us, and ultimately you see a void that we have in our life that can only be filled by Jesus. So a lot there. It's kind of crazy.
There is a lot there. In this verse that you preached on Sunday, I'm going to read it and then ask us a question. I'm going to actually just read the first opening phrase. It says, knowing that everything had now been finished. Then Jesus says the phrase, right? What is finished in this? So what is happening here in this moment on the cross in John 19:28, that Jesus, it seemingly in his mind's eye or in his head, he knows that something is finished. What is finished?
Yeah, I said on Sunday, I'm not sure we know exactly, but I think we can make a good assumption that the atonement of sin is finished, right? Mm-hmm. That atonement means the payment is finished. He has taken on the wrath of God, poured out on him. And you'll see right next. So it's kind of the progression of how we do things, right? We think something in our mind and it comes out of our mouth. So Jesus thinks it now, knowing in his head that it has been finished. He fulfills a prophecy by saying, I am thirsty. And then the next thing we're going to study is, he says the words, it's finished.
Like 2 verses later, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if I think it's I guess because 29.
Verse,
so, the fulfillment of prophecy. Yeah. And then it's the very next thing.
Yeah.
So.
Not 1930. So if you're waiting for next week, you got a spoiler alert. It is finished, right? In the 6th. Yeah, and that's hard. I feel like this series, it helps us be able to dive deep into these sayings, but it complicates some things because these just seemingly things that are maybe happening in just a few minutes or a few seconds apart. It feels like they're happening forever apart, because it's like, oh, we're not going to talk about that till next week. And so in our mind, we're like, wait, how can we say that that's what is exactly happening? Because we're separating these, just the time that we're spending studying them, we're diving deeper into them, but it complicates things, at least in my mind, with doing it that way. It's helpful, but yeah, not perfect.
Right. And is it the Apostles' Creed that says he descended into hell?
It is the Apostles' Creed.
And and obviously that all had to have been accomplished on the cross as well, right? Of today you will be with me in paradise, right? That he finished. He's wrapping up the entire wrath, atonement, everything, the suffering. It's happening on the cross. It's completed on the cross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the atonement, and next week we'll really dive into all the things that the atonement are. But they really, it starts with Jesus' life. Right? If you think about the comparison of the sacrificial lamb in the Old Testament, of Exodus and all these things, the atonement starts with the life of Jesus, the incarnation, and it doesn't end until he's been resurrected. Like it's a full picture of the atonement.
That's a good question, because is the atonement finished on the cross? I think you could say yes. So the sin is paid for, but the victory hasn't been won.
Right.
So is the victory part of the atonement? Probably, yes.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how scholars debate that. I haven't really studied it in depth.
I got you.
Okay, yeah. So
what feels right about it, of course, is our experience of salvation without final victory.
Right.
Yeah. But in short, to answer that question, Jesus' death would have been no different from a lamb or bull in the Old Testament if he would have not resurrected. Right? His atonement would have been no different from a sacrificial lamb in the Old Testament that never resurrected again.
Well, I mean, I think you could argue that Jesus says it is finished. So those words have to hold
but like
true.
You said,
It is
the wrath.
It
the
is.
Wrath
It is
finished
accomplished.
in this moment.
We don't get proof of
Yeah.
it until the resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think in this moment, like you said two separated things, but the major thing that I feel like, knowing that it had now been finished, it's him fully drinking the cup of God's wrath. That is he drank the last drop. It's over, and so he's like, okay, now, and then he moves to the next phrase to talk about multiple other things that the accomplishing but no victory yet in this moment is happening. Yeah. But Brad, you brought up something really cool that we hadn't even thought of, is the Apostles' Creed. Yet it will be addressed.
It will be? Okay.
Yes. Just so you know, stay tuned,
folks. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We're making promises that Drew has to fulfill. That's what I really like.
It's always fun. I feel like a lot of people do that.
Resolve the Trinity for us while you're at it.
Right. And let's just keep saying some more things.
I know,
right?
and like these sermons are already wrote, right? That's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, wait, did we do that? We're like knee deep in Revelation right now. So just so you know, that's coming. Oh man, we're looking at dragons and bears and lions. Oh my, it's pretty crazy.
Two-horned lambs. It's really cool. But we do deal with the Apostles' Creed phrasing inside of that. So, all right, let's talk about one thing.
Young guy has a better memory than I do.
So here's my next
Mine's
question.
getting worse.
Here's my next question inside of this. Is it seemingly, in most of these weeks on the cross, we have said, hey, look at where Jesus is either citing a phrase of a verse or a whole verse, or in this instant, he's not only citing a verse, but a soldier fulfills a prophecy accidentally of grabbing a hyssop branch, where you took us to two places in Psalms and to Exodus. And the question that I want to talk about is, so why is the Old Testament relevant to us, and do we need to know our whole Bible, or can we just be like Brad and just read the Gospels all the time? Right?
I love the Gospels.
I mean, I would say, obviously, yes, right? You want your full Bible. It's a full picture, and it all works in unison to point to Jesus, right? So, I mean, that's what I love about this series, is you're seeing all of these predictions in the Old Testament that are being fulfilled by Jesus. So they like work hand in hand in unison together. So yes, you need your Old Testament. It's an important, it's flawless. It's perfect, right? So you you can't take away a piece of it. Now, I think if I were to suggest if someone is like, where should I read my Bible? I would say start in John. I wouldn't say start in Genesis, right? Normally a book you pick up, you go from, the first page to the end. The Bible's a little bit different. Yeah. Just a shout out, we're getting ready to do a series. I don't know what we're calling it, but we'll say Getting to Know Your Bible. Why can you trust your Bible? We're going to do 4 weeks on just like understanding the Bible, how it works, the nuances of it, the literature of it. It's going to be a good series.
Yeah, and I would say no one gets to the mountaintop without going through the valley, right? Yeah. I mean, we could helicopter you there, but think of someone who just shows up at the end of a movie and says, "What's the big deal? Everyone's happy." The Old Testament, we need to walk through how dark and desperate we are, how messed up humanity is, how flawed we are, how we deceive ourselves. It's just, it is a depressing trip often through the Old Testament. There's tons of hope and wonderful things in there, wonderful rejoicing, celebration, deliverance, and the rest. But it all creates, that Jesus-shaped hole, that we ache for, to see him fulfill. But yeah, I just think, I just know that for me, every trip to the Old Testament just helps me with soberness regarding my own sin. Right? Yeah. Death penalties for the Sabbath, for crying out loud. It's to appreciate how holy God is, how sinful we are. I need the Old Testament for that.
Well, even the verse I read, Hebrews 10, it is New Testament, but talking about the Old Testament, that the annual sacrifice of sins wasn't to delete your sins. It was to remind you of how sinful you were.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I love the point that you pointed out, which is exactly where I would say if someone who's never touched a copy of God's Word, where do you start?
Yes.
Yeah, John. Let's read John, because let's read the whole point of who this thing is about first. Yeah. Now,
let's get the backstory.
Yeah, let's get the backstory almost.
And a lot of movies do that. They start like in the middle, and then like, wait, in order to understand this, you got to go here, right? Because without Genesis, there's no need for the Gospels.
Right. Yeah.
With every great movie, there's that opening scene which you have no context for, and you're
what's going on?
Wait, what? And the rest of the movie is just unpacking and then building up to that moment, which happens again 10 minutes until the movie's over, and then they resolve it, and they're like, "Wait, wow, that's really almost every movie we enjoy watching."
Watch more movies.
That's right. Watch more movies. That's what
my wife would disagree.
Application, right there. Yeah, but I love this aspect that you pointed out, Drew, of God in the details, of the fact that John, as he's recording this, he says, "I think it's helpful that the people know that the soldier grabbed a hyssop branch." He didn't just grab a stick or a rod. He could have just been so generic, but he was like, no, he grabbed a hyssop branch, a very specific. And so thinking about and just applying this to our lives, in fact, of God being in the details of all these little things, is that how God still operates, or is he concerned about bigger matters like what's going on in the Ukraine? Like what is happening on a global scale of crisis and hunger and all these terrible human things that are happening right now? Is God exclusively concerned with those, more concerned with those than the matters of our life, or where is that at?
Well, if he's counting hairs on a head, he's pretty detail-oriented.
I think it's hard again, we're humans. I'll openly admit, I struggle to do two things at once, right? Ask my wife. She's like, Drew, just focus on one thing, get that done, and move to the next.
Trying.
Yeah, exactly. I do, and it always, it always shows my flaws real fast. But God is not like a one-track mind God. Yeah. He has the ability to be fully focused on Ukraine and still count the grains of sand in the. He's all knowing, all powerful. So for us to even fathom how he does that is just you're not going to get there. Right. We are so small compared to God, and he is in the details. He cares about every detail of your life, every thing that you say, how you say it, every choice that you make. He has the ability to know what's going on in every individual's life and all the crisis in the world, all at the same time. And I don't know how he does it.
Right.
it seems overwhelming to me. It seems like a burden that no one should ever carry. But God, it's not a burden to God. It's who He is. And it's hard to fathom. It is.
Yeah. I just, the one verse came to my mind of thinking about like God's caring and even thinking about our suffering in the world or our anxiousness is 1 Peter 5:7, where it says that cast all your anxieties on Him because He cares for you.
Right.
And I think the point of, is He cares for us. And so the details of our life are
Important to God.
a package deal in that sense of He does care about the details of our lives because He cares for us. And it's the same way of like someone that we care about, that there may be something in their life that if separated between the person and the thing, we wouldn't care about the thing, but we care about the thing because we care about the person.
Yeah.
Inside of that.
It's the exercise of faith, right? Because there's always that temptation. God doesn't care about me, or God doesn't do things like that for me, but no, He is the God who sees. And we have all those stories of the widows, the marginalized, that God steps in and intervenes for. But that is faith, that even when we don't see it, right, we just have confidence that He is at work, that He is orchestrating it.
When you read the Bible, even in just this passage that we've been looking at, this moment in Jesus' life, look at all the details, right? So, my God, why have you forsaken me? It tells us the time when things happen. Like the details from noon to 3. And there was a prediction before that of that. So, like, again, you read your Bible, you see how detailed it is.
Yeah.
I mean, people aren't making prophetic prophecies that are like, yeah, there will be a guy or a woman or somebody who comes at some point and he does something cool. No, it's like he's going to do this at noon and he's going to this and that. Like the details of just Jesus's life and his predictions, if you really study them, are specific and detailed.
Yeah, and you think of other religions where it's just about discussing truths, right? But for us, it all rises and falls on, did this actually happen?
Yeah.
So our Bible is all about, especially Luke, we're in John, but Luke is crazy detailed about things, but it is all about proving this. No. This isn't just a truth we can all agree to. This is, in order for us to achieve salvation, the God-man Jesus must have stepped into history. He must have climbed, been put on that cross. He must have died. He must have come out of the tomb. And so to surround that with all the details, some of them appear contradictory, but that's just kind of evidence of how authentically and independent these accounts are. But our faith rises and falls on this actually happens. So we need the details. The details show.
They matter.
Yeah, and you bring up a great question of like, is there contradictions? Are they actually contradictions, or is there something else happening that we're not able to see? That what we would define as a contradiction, the Bible's like, no, thinking of like the teachings of Jesus, right? That he probably said those teachings multiple times, and somebody just recorded it one way when he said it. It's like if Drew, if you deliver that same message you delivered on Sunday,
9 and 10:30, right?
Might you delivered it twice. Some people would say like, you said different things. You presented contradiction. It's like,
they do.
No, that's not. He just taught the same thing twice. Is there something that was wrongly said, or did he say it a different way? And most of the time we see those in the Gospels. It was Jesus saying the same teaching in a different way. There's not one wrong.
And this happens all the time in,
Yeah.
in investigations, right?
Yeah.
When you're interviewing people, the way people see things, hear things from the time and angle, vantage point,
Right.
it all could feel like contradictions, but it all could actually also work in unison when you put the pieces together.
Yeah, like I said, it's evidence of authentically different viewpoints. If they were all,
Carbon copies.
we'd say that's one source.
Yeah.
Right. There's one
Yeah.
source.
Yeah.
being
For
put.
sure.
But here's no. We have different people have different views, access to different things, pooling them together, and it's going to look a little different.
Yeah.
And they're all apparent contradictions, right? So it's
And they highlight different things because they have a different target in
Sure.
mind. Like I've heard why does Matthew open up with a genealogy? It's because he's targeting a Jewish audience,
Right. Yeah.
versus like Luke he's like, let's go detail. I'm trying to reach the Gentiles. Like,
Well, and they're different people
and they're
too.
different
I
people
think The
from different
Chosen
backgrounds.
did a great job of
Yes.
bringing that out of like you can see what's his name writing down things all along the
Matthew.
journey.
Oh, yeah,
Matthew,
yeah,
the
yeah,
detail.
yeah,
He's just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and,
I
you know,
love the detail. Like there's a scene in season 1, like in the middle way through the season where Jesus calls Matthew, and Matthew does this like nonchalant. He's like, should I put my tablet back? Jesus goes, no, you're gonna need it. And he's like, and it's just such a casual. I'm like, he made a plug for the gospel. And Rena's like, what do you? I'm like, go back, rewind. Like watch this like little subtle slide thing that they throw in there. Like that's so good. But you brought out something, Brad, and both of us, I would love for us to talk about of a passage that Drew, you brought up about Jesus being the God-man. You highlighted his humanity, and you took us to Philippians 2. In Philippians 2, you read us Jesus. The statement about Jesus from Paul says, "Who being in the very nature of God," Philippians 2:6, by the way, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking on the very nature of a servant. And what is happening in the life of Jesus on the earth? What does it mean for him to say he made himself nothing? What is going on in the God-man? The NIV doesn't do us a ton of help in this exact one. Most translations would say he emptied himself. And so what is he emptying himself of, and what's going on here for this moment, this whole life of Jesus, and this moment on the cross to be so pivotal?
Yeah, this is hard because I love that language, emptying himself. So like for God to become human, he has to empty himself of his godliness, but yet he's still fully God. So it's like, how do you work those two things out? Because they're so different, right? Being human and being God are like so different. So just, and how do you mold the two things together?
Yeah, he retains a deity that he chooses not to exercise.
Yeah.
He, it's chooses, you have the right to, you read your rights to remain silent, and he remains silent, regarding his deity. That, it's pointed out, he could have called angels, to rescue him. He could have. There's
Multiple
all these
times.
things he chooses not to exercise his godness in.
Yeah.
And
A great way is that I've heard it said is Jesus did not subtract from his deity to get humanity. He added to his deity by taking on humanity. And so he didn't subtract anything, but he
just
added
added.
to. And a great example was used of he's wrapped in flesh, and so it suppresses. He elects to suppress his deity and cloak it.
Yeah.
He cloaks it.
Harry Potter, right?
Harry Potter's it.
Yeah, it's a hard dynamic to understand, but it's a very important truth that makes Jesus a acceptable, worthy sacrifice, the fully God, fully man, right? It's an important piece of salvation that we have to wrestle with and understand, that he was completely human and completely God. It's not like 50-50. He was 50% God, 50%. No, he's 100% God and 100% man. And we talked about how important that is to us, that Jesus gets us, that he was a human being and dealt with limitations and weaknesses that we wrestle with, that we struggle with, that frustrate us every single day. Yeah. He dealt with them.
Yeah. All right. This is the last question that I want all of us to answer and wrestle through this as we wind down. We'll start with you, Drew, since you preached it. All right. What was your favorite quality that you highlighted of Jesus's humanity, and what was that? And why was it?
For me, it was the weeping, just because it's so close to the loss of my dad, and I could so relate to just bawling like a baby. I'm not a huge crier. I'm an emotional guy, but I'm not a big crier. And when my dad died, I've never cried like I like it, just uncontrollable crying. And so to see that in Jesus over the loss of a friend was like, I just identified with it so at a personal and intimate level. And it was like, man, Yeah, he gets that. He's been there. He's felt that. I think that's important, and it was important for me.
Yeah. Those. I lost my dad. He was 52. I was 26. So was that right? Yeah. Yep, 26. And but yeah, I don't know. Just remind you that that's to walk through that, and then just the emotion, that overwhelms you. And again, it was the same thing with like the birth of my child, where you just realize, oh, you're overwhelmed with emotion, and you say, I remember, thinking I never knew my parents loved me that much, but then, then it was pointed out in the Discipleship Explored series, someone talking about when she had her child, I didn't realize God loved me that much.
Yeah.
But so to go through the death and you're ripped up by your dad, but then to know Jesus is even more ripped up, right, by that, even more love, even more loss, to experience. And what a comfort it is to have a God who feels, who knows, may not offer answers, but always offers presence and understanding. Just that. It's just, I know there's an answer. I mean, I know there is an answer. I don't know what that answer is. But I know there is an answer.
I like that, a God who feels, right? Because God, again, feels so distant, so big. And honestly, he's got so much going on that it's like, why would he care about this? But he does. He feels that. He doesn't just care. He feels what you feel.
Okay, mine is, it's going to be way more sentiment. I loved the sarcasm. I liked the...
Why does that make total sense?
It does.
He's young.
Yeah,
he's young. There's so much life for you to experience.
So much life. I love the sarcasm of, every time Jesus... It feels like, for me, like growing up in church and, going to Bible college and seminary and those kind of things like that, it would be so easy to become pharisaical, of just like one of the religious leaders. And so I love reading the passages in the Gospels of the woes to the Pharisee, of just like, you don't get it, of just constantly over and over again. And then that's probably the reason why I actually love the Old Testament prophets, is because they're constantly rebuking a whole nation that don't get it. Like they missed it. You've missed the entire point. And, I just think about like, how much time do I spend in my life missing the actual point of like, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus and those kind of things. And so those
that's the terror of it,
hit
right?
me
People
between
a
the
lot
eyes.
smarter than me,
Missed it.
totally missed it.
Yeah.
So just to say,
they've totally missed the whole point. It's a humbling reminder of, man, these were all people, and there's so many people in the Bible who had the right initial motive, like they want to honor God, they want to do what's right, but then that led them down the self-righteous wrong path of I'm right, you're wrong, and therefore this is how I'm living now. Like, and so I connected with that, and I like that side of it. Not because I don't want to necessarily always be that. I am sarcastic at times, but I don't always want to be that. I want to experience the opposite.
Have you ever had holy sarcasm?
Oh, probably. I'm probably probably. It's very few and far in between, but
I've always wondered that when I was like, man, have I ever had a sarcastic moment in my life that was righteous?
Yeah.
Mostly passive aggressive.
Yep, that's what it was.
Yeah, I love that statement. You strain out a gnat, but you swallow a camel.
And you're like, wait, what?
I know. If you have to just think about that.
Like Jesus' whole moment. I'm just thinking about the Pharisees in that moment when they get that and they're like, what is he talking about? And he's like, exactly.
But you think about that. I love how that identifies with those far from God.
Yeah.
Right? Because the crowd cheers, and it's like, yes, Christians are a bunch of morons or whatever. I mean, it's just you get it why people outside see sometimes people outside the church see our hypocrisy far clearer than we see it here. We deceive ourselves and the rest, and we need to be called out on it. And so I just love, people who, see Jesus calling us out on our hypocrisy in the world. Yes, that's what I've been complaining about all along.
Yep.
All right, Brad, what about you?
What about me? Didn't I answer it? What was the
You
question?
can't just say, what you said, Drew. You got to pick.
What was
your favorite characteristic that Drew walked through? Weeping, sarcasm,
family dysfunction.
Yeah, family dysfunction.
And tiredness.
So you had to pick one.
I'm still sticking with Jesus wept, though. I'm still sticking with the emotion.
You can't take away from him. It's his story.
It is
Okay.
my
Your
story.
I can change mine.
But I'm
Tiredness.
different than Drew.
Let's go.
I'm different than Drew. I mean, he says he doesn't
Obviously.
cry much. I mean, I cry at
You're emotional?
at a commercial. I mean, it's just anything. My wife, so often we're on the couch, she just like turns at me like, why
I'm
are you
upset that
crying?
you
This
haven't-
is emotional.
Crying
You had,
or
like, a
a tear
tear?
running down. Like I have tears run down my
Okay, so-
You know, allergies, but
yeah.
I remember.
I mean, like crying, like
I was sitting in a theater with my daughter, my adult daughter, and we were watching this really wrenching movie, and I am ugly sobbing in the theater. I mean, my daughter, I'm sure she was looking like, how I need to change seats. I cannot be identified with this man. She was so embarrassed.
I've never done that.
I'm currently
We're
currently upset that you have not yet cried on the podcast. Then
Oh, yeah.
we haven't moved you
we
enough.
haven't moved you to tears.
Yeah.
Come
No,
on,
I guess we're not
nothing
getting
Drew
there yet.
said moved you to tears yet.
None of my sermons.
Come on,
I mean, you are in the online studio just bawling, aren't you?
Oh, yeah,
every
that's it.
Sunday
That's
he's over
it.
there just
Yeah.
Can't pull myself
Pre-
together.
Why are there so many
Pre-
tissues in here? Like there's got boxes and cases of them. Just yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, thanks so much for connecting today on A Little Better Podcast. Go to iwant.info, northridgerochester.com, either one of those, to see how you can take a next step here at Northridge, take an equip class, tune into other resources. Other than that, we'd love to see you on a Sunday as this coming week we continue week 6, the next to last week of Final Words. Thanks.